Welcome to episode 2 of Saarthi Talks. Today we will be taking up an issue which has been in the news for the past 2 months. Today we will be talking about the migrant laborers and how they have suffered through this pandemic. How this pandemic, which has brought upon immense misery and suffering in all our lives, has similarly devastated the lives of the migrant laborers to an unimaginable extent.
My dad is from Punjab and he has been posted to various locations across India and is currently residing in Mumbai. But no one calls him a migrant officer, right? So, my question is, why do we call our workers as migrant laborers?
But doesn't our constitution give our citizens the right to work in any part of the country? Are they not as much a citizen as your father is? So why call them migrants?
Yes, it does. And I definitely agree. Let's just call them blue collared workers or just workmen and treat them with the dignity and respect they deserve.
Sometimes I feel sad that these workmen they come to our cities for their livelihood and sustenance. They build our houses, they run our factories, and they're essentially the backbone of all our services, ranging from cleanliness to security. And what do they get in return? Pittance of money and hellish living conditions in our urban slums.
Come to think of it, they have given us so much. And what have we given them in return? Not even a dignified life. So, can someone explain to me that, what is the grassroots of this situation?
See, as per NSSO, employment in India is largely categorized as self-employment, regular employment, and casual employment. The NSSO conducted a survey between I think so 2004 and 2012, and based on the data that they have collected, in India we have around 500 million workers, of which 50 odd million workers are migrants. That is people that are not living in their home state. The blue collar of a society were as it is very vulnerable, but being not situated in their home state, and added to that a pandemic that has struck us, has made these blue collared workers even more vulnerable.
That's really unfortunate, but what is the status of their social security?
Well, I'm afraid not very promising because nearly 100 million Indian workers, not including the self employed, have absolutely no access to benefits. What is more worrying is that a significant portion of regular wage workers, who amount to over 55%, were left deprived of social security in 2011 to 12 as per the NSSO records.
Wow. So basically, the lack of a social security net combined with the current global pandemic has exacerbated the already frail economic condition of our workmen.
You know what's ironic? That the disease is brought by the passport holders into the country, and the worst sufferers are the poor ration card holders.
Agreed. They are the most exposed to the disease, as most of them are living in the slum areas where social distancing can only be a dream. You see, social distancing is a luxury for these people. And to add to the misery, they have suffered the loss of livelihood because of the closure of workspaces, and now most of their employers are leaving them to fend for themselves because they are also running out of liquidity.
See, I understand that most of these workmen are engaged on a daily wage basis, and I believe they are the worst sufferers of the lockdown.
You need to understand that savings are a notion that is only for middle and upper middle classes. And for the workmen, they mostly live hand to mouth. So due to the lockdown, what has happened is that they have nothing to fall back upon to feed themselves and their families.
But hasn't the government announced the package to help them in both cash and currency?
Yes, of course. I mean, both the center and the state governments have announced measures to help them, including providing free ration, gas, and even financial support in terms of cash. But what we see is there is always a challenge of the government's aid reaching all of the people on time. And also, another question is whether this is sufficient.
But many of my friends and other community organizations are also helping them, right? So then, why is there still a lack of social security net in our country as compared to other nations? Why doesn't our government spend more?
Yes, in fact, a very large number of organizations have come out during this pandemic. The state, the center, all of them are doing really good work. But you see, the numbers are too large for everybody to get covered. Moreover, the disease has also, created anxieties in the minds of people, and that is something that basically, whenever a person is anxious, he wishes to be with his family, and so these workers also wish to go back home.
You know what? As far as social security is concerned, comparing India with any other nation is like comparing apples and oranges. Population of Australia is just 10% of the total population of just Uttar Pradesh alone. That's just one state of India. The magnitude of the situation is entirely different over here. We are talking about a country which has a per capita income of $2,500, and we're comparing it with countries like Denmark, Sweden, US, UK, countries which have a per capita income of over $40,000. Simply speaking, there is no money in India, and the population is just too large. We have 1.3 billion people, so it's unreasonable to expect that we will have a social security net. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm just saying that we need to get real.
But then what's the solution? How exactly do we survive this pandemic? How did the less fortunate in India survive the brunt of this?
See, there is no ready made answer for that. Simply speaking, we were never prepared for a situation like this. The writing was always on the wall. We always knew that a pandemic could hit us any time. I mean, the experts had warned us, there was a past precedent, but we never really prepared ourselves for this. So, I'll give you an example. You see, in Patiala, a city from where my father hails, there is a government hospital named Rajendra. This hospital was built around, I believe, 50 years ago. Now, in this 50 years, the population of Patiala must have shot up by around 10 to 15 times. Yet, the additions seen in the government health infrastructure is almost negligible.
You know, before the lockdown started, my brother was in another state. I was so anxious till the time he reached back home. And I feel extremely lucky that during this lockdown, all of us family members are together. I simply cannot imagine what must be going through the minds of our workers.
Yes, fortunately, the government has started the Shramik trains, and many individual actors like Sonu Sood also pitched in for arranging transportations for them. I'm so happy that they are no longer walking on roads to meet their families.
Yes, yes. We at YIMF have also started a project called ACAM to help provide relief to our workmen.
Why don't we ask Ishan to explain the project IKYAM since he was on ground to execute the same along with Pratishtha, Sana and Parikshat?
Right. So initially we didn't have any plans to go ahead with a fundraiser. I mean, we weren't planning on doing this sort of a project. But then looking at the situation developing on ground, seeing how others were pitching in, and just the tiredness of the circumstances, really, all of us at YMF really thought that maybe we should also now do something. I mean, as students, we should come together, pool whatever resources we have, and try and help out these workers that are stuck over here because of this pandemic.
Basically, under Project AKIM, we sent 45 workmen to Prayagraj, Uttar Pradesh from Mumbai, and honestly, it was a heartwarming feeling.
Thanks for the brief on AKM, guys. Does everyone know what is the biggest learning which we get from the kind of tribulations or the kind of problems which our laborers have faced during this pandemic?
What?
See, if India needs to become a just and progressive society, it needs to provide better working conditions for its laborers. Basically, four things: a decent housing, decent wages, proper healthcare, and educational facilities for children are the bare minimum necessities which we can provide as an entity to the workers or to the laborers. Our development will be complete only if our poor develop at par along with us. We shouldn't let them fall back to poverty just because of one pandemic or one crisis.
You know what? This conversation brings me back to this saying I read. a few days back that the strength of the chain is measured by its weakest link. So basically, to make our country into a prosperous and an all inclusive country, it is the need of the hour that we start caring about this vulnerable class, that is, our workmen.
Once again, we would like to thank everyone who believed in our initiative and donated for this cause. You helped us achieve our goal. Young United Minds Foundation extends gratitude to you all. Thank you so much.